Record. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. You are listening to Procure Smarter with Dr. Sharon Cook. That's me. And this episode and every episode is sponsored by ProcureSmart. With over 20 years of hospitality purchasing and consulting and a PhD in procurement ethics, I'm on a mission to help you procure smarter. ProcureSmart is a cloud-based boutique purchasing agency. Our team has experience in projects of all sizes, including conversions, renovations, new construction. We offer dynamic customer experiences and competitive pricing. Reach out to us today to see how we can help with your next project. Okay, on today's show, we have Mr. Mike Landers. We have been trying to get him on the show forever, and through no fault of his, fully our own. It has fallen through twice now, so this is our third time, and hopefully the charm. Mike is a sales negotiation, training, and deal coaching expert, and we are going to talk today about RFP conversion rates and procurement insights from sellers. So stay tuned. The next time you see me, I will have Mr. Mike Landers on the line with us. All right, everybody, we are back with Mr. Mike Landers. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how you doing, Sharon?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
That's a pleasure. Looking forward to it.
I did a whole intro for you, but why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So Mike Lander, I've got an interesting kind of mixed background of being in kind of corporate life for probably half my working life, and then as an entrepreneur since about, probably 2000, maybe a bit before. I've worked in engineering, I've worked in large-scale consultancies globally. I've been a procurement director. I've bought well over, probably approaching now nearly $500 million worth of goods and services, negotiated hundreds of deals. And what I do now is I work with suppliers on the supply side who are negotiating with clients, enterprise clients, trying to get deals across the line. So I tend to work with salespeople who are negotiating deals with their clients, and I train them to improve their negotiation skills with a kind of insight of how a procurement buyer would buy. And we both know what that feels like.
Right. Right. And I love that. Yeah, I love that. So we're going to talk about that because I want to talk about pet peeves of buyers.
Yep.
Things that suppliers come in and do that set the tone right off the bat.
Yep.
But I also want to talk about one of the things that you'd handle right now are RFP conversion rates.
Correct.
And how to convert those RFPs into dollars.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk about that, but I also want to I just want to make sure I get this right. You are CEO of Piscari. Is that pronounced right? Piscari. Yep. And Piscari is just kind of your company that you've created to do this with, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you are an expert negotiator. You're a very experienced procurement specialist. So let's talk about the RFP conversion rate with sellers. And what are some of the common themes that you hear when, I wouldn't say they're complaining, but when they're talking about the struggles of the RFP process?
Sure. So just kind of some headline data. So I'd expect an RFP conversion rate, once it's been qualified, you ought to be winning between 30% and 40% of your RFPs broadly. If you get up to like 50%, 60%, you're doing really well. Yeah. So you kind of, winning 1 in 3, 1 in 2 of pre-qualified RFPs. And therein is the kind of start point. The start point is an RFP lands. So let's say, I'm a supplier and you're the buyer and you've sent me an RFP. So I met you once at a conference, say. It was 3 years ago. We exchanged business cards. This has arrived across my desk. I haven't spoken to you since then. We've never worked with your organization. We know no one else. We've only met you. The deal's worth $500,000. The reality is, when I get that RFP, the first thing I'm doing is I should be qualifying the RFP really hard. And so I've got an RFP qualification calculator. that I built for this reason, because I recognized that suppliers were struggling with, well, how do I qualify things in or out? And we'll put in the show notes, we'll put the calculator link.
Okay.
And what it does is it says, is this an RFP that you stand a chance of winning? You know, to get to that kind of 1 in 3 win. One of the first questions is, have you any experience of working in this organization, or do you have an internal sales coach, for example, within the organization? If the answer is no, well, you're probably off to a pretty bad start. Then you say, are you being given access to anyone inside the organization that's a budget holder for this piece of work? It's a $500,000 piece of work. Let's say it's marketing, say. You're the procurement lead. There's a marketing budget holder that you're working with. If you say to me, Mike, you can't have any access to the budget holder via email, the only person you can talk to is me via email, and the only way you can communicate is fill in the RFP, put it on the portal, and we'll come back to you. That again is a big red flag. I mean, how many RFPs have we written between us, Sharon? I don't know. It must be over 1,000, I suspect.
Right.
And as good as we are at writing RFPs, it's really hard to convert what's in the budget holder's mind onto paper and get it 100% right. So if you can't talk to the budget holder during the RFP process, with procurement there, and there's good reasons why we need to be in the meeting, then you're off to a bad start. Because you can't get access to the person that's going to make the decision about the outcome they're trying to achieve. So qualification is critical. And that should knock out probably 20% of RFPs you receive, at least, you will qualify out for all those reasons.
So let me ask you this. You know, I look at it from 2 angles. And I had this conversations with Drew Murray about 6 months ago. You know, sometimes when a buyer will send out an RFP, they will tell you, listen, this is just an exercise. I just need a number. And I think there's nothing wrong with saying that. Be honest. If this is just an exercise, be honest. Don't waste anybody's time.
Correct.
But sometimes, you know, there is that ability where I send out an RFP, not really thinking it's going to get much, but I need a 3-bid process. The owner requires a 3-bid. And it can surprise you, and it can lead to real business.
It can.
Yeah. So I want vendors to understand there is a qualification process, but sometimes the shot in the dark is a good thing too.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that kind of shot in the dark. So let's go through those kind of qualification criteria again.
Do it.
So, you know, you scored, you can't get access to the stakeholder, and you have no prior knowledge of working in the organization. But you say to, so I'm about to kind of right back to saying, actually, it's kind of not for us. And as I'm thinking that, I think, but actually, as it happens, we specialize in your sector. So I know that you buy a lot of furniture for clients and F&F. I happen to run also a business with my wife and a friend of ours in the architecture and interior design business.
Okay.
So we buy stuff for clients, very similar,
right?
Not at your scale. And I say, you know, we know your sector really well. We do a lot of work in your sector. We've got something quite innovative. When I qualify it out, what I'll probably do is say, Sharon, you know, we've recognized this isn't for us. We can't meet a stakeholder. We've never worked with your organization before. So we're gonna no bid. However, here's a thought leadership paper, or here's something that we've done. Here's a case study, or 3 case studies of something really innovative we did in your sector. If something else comes up that's in that vein, please let us know. We'd love to talk to you. So what I'm advising people to do is I'm saying, don't bid for things that take 30 hours of time. The average RFP response hours, person hours put in, is about 26. Don't spend 26 hours putting all the effort in when you know that you've got less than 10% chance of winning. Right. But do respond to Sharon going, we'd love to stay in touch. We'd love to respond to something else that's more relevant to us. Occasionally what happens then, I've been in that position as a buyer, I've gone, okay. Well, the RFP, I might have a sideline conversation with you going, well, the RFP I sent out, you know, there is something we're doing which is similar to that, but a bit different. And it's at the very early stage. And I'd like to talk to you about that separately. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
And you've opened up this door into a potential new client, but you've not wasted hours bidding for something that really, it probably is a, 4-bid, 5-bid process. You're one of the ones they picked up because you met them at a conference. You're probably not going to stand a chance of winning unless you do something extraordinary in your response document that really knocks it out of the park. It's not that likely you're going to win, but you've now opened the door to a new contact.
Agreed. And let's go one step further. Let's say they do something extraordinary. Their bid is amazing. A buyer like me is going to look at that and be like, I don't know enough about this company to know if this is a good bid.
Is it real? Yeah.
Just like they don't know enough about me, I don't know enough about them to gauge the quality of the bid.
So this is a great topic. So a lot of suppliers. So you say, what do suppliers gripe about to me? Because I work on the supply side, helping them negotiate better deals with highly professional buyers like you. And one of their biggest gripes is, oh, it's only about price. They're going to beat me up. And I say, that's not true. What else is the problem? Well, they've got these hurdles and it's ridiculous. I have to jump through them. What's one of the hurdles? And they say I'm too small. And I say, they're not saying you're too small. They go, yes, they are. They've told me you're too small. I said, no, that's what they're saying to you. What they mean is the risk is too high, or we don't know the risk. And to this point, Sharon, I think it's an excellent point around procurement's job. I wrote something called a procurement equation. So the procurement success equation. I'm an engineer by training and I like maths. So, I wrote an equation. And procurement success, to me and my experience, looks something like this. There are 6 variables. And think of it as an equation. So you got things on the numerator, things on the denominator. On the top line, I've got price and ROI, sure. I've got reliability. I've got quality. I've got innovation. And I've got supply chain diversity and inclusion. So I've got already like kind of 5 things on the top line. Mm-hmm. On the bottom line, I've got risk. And your job as a seller is to understand, how do I help the buyer get more comfortable with the risk? Because if I can reduce the risk, smaller number, procurement success goes up. Mm-hmm. And then suppliers go, okay, how do I do that? And I say, well, look at what the risk factors are. So your credit score. Have you checked your credit score recently? Supplier goes, no, I didn't really know I had one. I'm like, well, yeah, you've got one. Look it up online. Go to any of the credit scoring agencies. If you've got a really poor credit score and a very poor credit limit of £100, and this is a $500,000 contract, what do you think Sharon's going to say?
Right.
And they're like, ah. So I said, right, get your credit scores up to date. And also, what credit scores often are is it's a proxy for things like working capital. If Sharon gives you a $500,000 contract, and let's say your terms are 120 days payment on month end. So you could be 150 days out on working capital, half a year.
Right.
So you could be $250,000 out on working capital that you've got to fund. Well, if your balance sheet's got no cash on it and you're not factoring, how on earth are you going to finance this? And then suppliers start to go, okay, right. So this is about financial risk. Yeah. And I say, and there's lots of other risks as well.
There is. And here's another thing that I have found in my career. Something that I think is simple is asking for references.
Exactly.
I am always surprised when a new vendor comes to me and I will say to them, let me vet you. Let me talk to people that have done projects with you. Yeah. I can see how your shipping went, how your billing went. People are like, they're not prepared for it. They're like, oh, well, let me get back to you. I have to come up. And I'm like, I don't understand that. Why are you not prepared?
So I think, sadly, absolutely, preparation, if you're going to win with procurement, preparation's the key. And that's in the negotiation, but also in the DD. So if I was a supplier and I was looking to scale up and break through into other clients, I'd probably produce a DD pack. So I'd, on Google Drive, create a due diligence pack. So a vendor DD pack. And when Sharon, you asked for that, give me references and just talk me through kind of how you work as a supplier. I can say we've got loads of references and other stuff. We've got our cybersecurity policies about cyber risk. We've got our health and safety policies, diversity inclusion policies. We've got published accounts in there. We've got explanations about the kind of sectors we work in, what clients have said about us, testimonials. And you're like,
yeah.
Wow. Okay. It's all in one place. We'll share it with you. It's a Google Drive.
Yeah. I would be amazed. I would be thrilled. Yeah.
Yeah. You'd be thrilled, wouldn't you? Made your life so much easier.
Yeah.
Because we as procurement people score vendors. So we have to score them. So we have a spreadsheet and we put down the criteria and then we put the weightings on and then we score suppliers. Well, if you can't provide any data about giving me risk reduction strategies and you can't give me any references and you've no documentation, well, you're not going to get past the scoring. You just won't.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of suppliers get wrong.
And that's good. I'm glad you said that because that was actually my next question. What was one or two main obstacles that suppliers get wrong? What are they running up against? And I think you said it very eloquently. There's some very basic things they can be doing. I call myself a little bit of a gatekeeper. You know, you have to get past me to get the money. And what do I need to give you money? In some cases, we're talking millions of dollars.
Exactly.
So if you're selling me a pencil, I probably only need a little bit of information. If you're selling me $1 million worth of furniture, I probably need a lot of information.
Exactly.
And be prepared for that.
And I think there's 2 points around that. So I was talking to someone just earlier on I've done 2 guest podcasts today. The other one, I was saying, often we think of procurement as being corporate guardians. We're the guardians of the organization. We're there to keep the organization safe. Yes, we're there to drive price, drive value, but we're also there to keep the organization safe. So that guardian role, that gatekeeper role is really important. And the second thing is, the reality is, it's not your money in procurement, it's your budget holder's money, but you've been tasked with spending it wisely on their behalf,
right?
With the right suppliers,
right?
And the role of the supplier now is I think what a lot of suppliers get wrong is they look at their economic buyer, their budget holder. So let's say it's furniture. So let's say that and the buyer, who would be a typical budget holder within your clients that holds the furniture budget? Who would it be? What would their role be?
In my world, the CFO.
Yeah, so the CFO holds the budget for furniture. The design choices are probably made by their interior design team.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, either internally or externally.
Yes.
And so when you're talking to the CFO, you're having one type of conversation. But when you talk to procurement, you're having a different type of conversation. And I think suppliers don't understand who are procurement, what do they need, and how do they operate. It's just another stakeholder. Right. Someone said to me, but they're like the police. You can't break the rules. I said, they're not the police.
No.
You might think they are.
Yeah.
And the rules might seem like rules, but they're not really. They're normally guidelines. Some things are rules, like certain contract terms. Yes. Some of them are non-negotiable. But here's a tip for any listener. Having written a lot of contracts in my time and sent them out, we'd send out an MSA. We'd say the MSA is non-negotiable. So some suppliers go, oh, well, okay, I'll just accept it. Well, that's a big mistake. When I said non-negotiable, what I mean is you can't red line my MSA. However, if you've got certain problems with particular clauses and you negotiate with me, we can put variations to the MSA in your schedule because the schedules normally override the master agreement.
Correct.
So the way that you get your variation to contract terms in is you put it in the schedules. You don't try and redline their MSA. Stuff like that. Suppliers don't understand or think about.
Well, and there is a little bit of an adversarial kind of point of view, where it shouldn't be you against me. I'm I really like to work as a team. If I have asked for something and you think it's impossible or goes against your company's policies, come back to me. Let's talk it out. Let's figure it out. But if you
So
like
here's an
redline
example.
it, yeah, oh yeah. But if you redline it, that's gonna make my head blow off. I'm
Exactly. So here's another example about that kind of. So someone said to me the other day, what's your view on win-win negotiations? I said 98% of negotiations are not win-win, they're win-lose. They're like, that's outrageous. I said, well, think about it. Someone's claiming value and someone's losing value on the whole. Is that true? And they're like, well, yeah, I could see how you could think it was true. So I said, well, look at a different scenario. Sharon, you're buying furniture and you're buying $1 million worth of furniture. So I know if you're buying $1 million worth of furniture, you've probably also got a soft furnishings budget. You're probably buying curtains and cushions at some scale. You're probably buying carpets. Now, if I happen to be a supplier also of soft furnishings and carpets and furniture, I might say to you, Sharon, look, we're really interested in this deal. We'd love to get the furniture deal, absolutely. And we're going to work our hardest together to get the right commercial terms. But I recognize price is a problem. What else are you buying at the moment? Have you bought it? And you go, well, we're buying $2 million worth of soft furnishings, including curtains, and we're buying $4 million worth of carpet. And I say, well, it's interesting you say that because we happen to also specialize in soft furnishings and carpet. So how about we do a deal whereby we bundle it all together? So it now becomes a $7 million deal rather than a $1 million deal. Now we've created, if possible, a win-win.
right.
You're going to get more buying scale economies. You're going to get one point of accountability for your supply. And I'm going to get a bigger deal, albeit at probably compressed margins. Now that I would call more of a win-win deal.
Right. Now, I actually think that there can be more room for a win-win deal, but only if both parties come to the table looking for that.
Yeah.
If I come to the table and I'm kind of being a hard ass and I've got a little bit of it, I'm the buyer, it's going to be my way or no way. I don't need you. It's not going to be a win-win. Everybody's going to walk out of that room feeling irritated and defeated. On the flip side, if the seller comes into the room and he's like, listen, I am the only one that sells this product. It's my way or no way. It's me or nothing. Then, you know what I'm saying? If we don't both come to the table in the right mindset, it'll never work.
And I think in furniture, that's a very good example because I mean, we've bought quite a lot of furniture for our clients in the past as well. I've got this interior design firm that we started. And what we find is a problem on the supply side. So when I'm the buyer on the buy side on behalf of the client, European furniture. So for example, you're buying a table and the client's fallen in love with an Italian marble table. Well, the problem you've got now is I always say to clients, don't get wedded to one product. Avoid, if you can, being wedded to one table from one supplier. Because if it doesn't go through distribution, we're buying it through the supplier direct. We've got no negotiation room now.
Right.
Because you're wedded to the outcome.
Right.
So I've got this thing about in a negotiation, the moment you're wedded to an outcome, your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, has gone.
Right.
Because you're going to have to accept whatever terms are given. And that's a good example on the supply side of suppliers abusing their position in the marketplace by having a particular product that everyone wants that no one else can supply.
Yes. Yes. I've had suppliers come to me and say, the price is the price. We will not customize. We will not change the finishes. We will not improve our lead time. We will not take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And
and that's why when I think the interior design industry is a very interesting industry looking at it from a procurement perspective. So what you've done is very smart because buying's poorly done within that industry unless you're a hotel. If you're a big hotel group, it's done really well because they've got the hang of how do you buy beautiful looking furniture yet actually introduced high levels of competitive tension into the process.
Yeah.
Because they've got the buying power, the scale, they can get manufacturers to bend and put forward 2 or 3 different options, and that then gives the buyer more choice.
Agreed.
But as you go down the market into the residential market or the small commercial market, yeah, the problem is if it's a commercial piece that you're doing for a client and they're fitting out an office, what's the first thing that they do? The CFO, the CEO, and probably the market director walk around and they find desks they like and chairs. And then they say to you, oh, it's too expensive. Could you just get the price down? And you're like, well, what are your options? What else are you prepared to accept? Well, nothing.
Right.
And they think we've got some magic wand that we wave.
Right.
When we walk in and we just suddenly get magically 25% off.
Right. Yeah. I love it when they're like, I have said over and over in my career, I literally am not building this stuff in my garage at home. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't have a magic wand. I'm not whipping this stuff up in my free time. There's a process.
Correct. And unless you're buying through distribution furniture, if you're going to the manufacturer or they only distribute through one channel in your market, well, you're kind of like dead in the water. You've only got now one choice. Whereas that's why I always think another big thing is procurement needs to get involved right up front, not at the supply negotiation stage, at the specification stage.
Yeah.
Because then we can work with the buyers to go, look, this is what's going to happen if you go down the route of walking down the road, walking into Target and finding certain things that you want. We'll only be able to buy it from them.
Yeah.
If you can give us a spec, we can put in front of you 3 suppliers that are equally good in terms of quality and reliability and supply chain and efficacy and, broadly price. Now pick the design that you like and you'll have a preferred supplier, but another one that you might be able to accept. Now I can put some tension into the discussions.
Yes. Listen, if you have said anything, that is the most important thing. I mean, it is so crazy. I have said over and over again, we provide a service in our company called what I call value auditing. It's not value engineering, because to me, value engineering is too late. That means you've already picked it. You have to have that, and I have to find a way to get it cheaper.
Yeah.
Where we do a value audit that says, listen, before you pick it, tell me what you want and let me give you some options in our price range.
Exactly. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's amazing. All right. So let's talk about, you actually are a co-host of a podcast as well, right?
Yes, correct.
Tell me about your podcast. From one podcaster to another, tell me about yours.
So a good friend of mine who started off as a client and then became a friend, and I still work with, I'm the chairman of their business, a guy called Kevin Gibbons. We were talking one day about podcasting and about guesting and about the huge numbers of podcasts out there, and should we do something? And we were talking away and we said, you know what? We've both had a lot of experiences in life and in business. And we both believe in giving back and sharing. So we said, well, why don't we just have a chat together on a podcast, record it, and we'll talk about the entrepreneurial journey, particularly for kind of agencies, marketing agencies. And we'll just talk about our learnings, what we learned, and hopefully people won't follow the same traps and pitfalls that we had. Mm-hmm. And it started, and we said, really importantly, we said, we're not trying to do this to win business. We're just doing it because it's a good thing to do. And it does raise awareness with people about who we are. And if it just does that, that's great. And that's how it started. And we called it It's a Good Start. So it's called It's a Good Start podcast. And the reason is, Kevin said to me, we were talking about names, and he said, Mike, you know what? When we first started working together, and Kevin he's the chief exec, he'd present something to me about what they're doing. I'd often say, it's a good start, Kevin. Now let's develop it.
Right.
Which was my English way of saying, it's not quite right yet, but we've got the bare bones of something that could work.
Yeah. Now I will tell you.
That's what we called it.
I have listened to several episodes and I love it. It is fantastic. I love it.
Thank you.
I listened to one, it actually had to do about the RFP process. And I think it was was it marketing maybe? That was
yeah, it was. That's right.
It was so good. I had my headphones on. I was just kind of like this at my computer. I was like, this is so interesting. What's going on here?
Oh, fantastic. I'm delighted, Sharon. That's really kind. Thank you.
It is excellent. Okay, I do have one final question for you. In my research, what is it Higgle, Higgle? What's a Higgle?
It is. So, Higgle is a negotiation workbook that I built. So, in fact, I've got a copy here.
Let's show it off.
It's a good old-fashioned wallet. You open the wallet, a bit like the old Filofaxes. And inside it are a whole bunch of templates that you fill in. And what it is it's a negotiation workbook. What I realized was I'd been on tens of negotiation skills training courses over my time, and I've read loads of books. And you walk away from all the training and all the reading, and it's quite hard to put it into practice. Because often the templates are complex and the concepts are multiple concepts. And so getting it all in your head at one time is quite difficult. And I also realized that people weren't preparing for negotiations consistently. Typically, people say, oh, they're a great negotiator. They're very insightful. They're a natural. And so what I did was I said, no, anyone can negotiate anything better. It's really straightforward. And I took all my knowledge and I boiled it down into a simple 4-step process that allows anyone to negotiate anything better. And that's and Higgle was brought about. My wife's a marketer and she's run branding companies, and we branded it as Higgle. As Higgle's kind of like very old-fashioned word for a kind of a barter, a discussion, but actually the meaning was around how do you collaborate together to build something, to negotiate something. And so we called it the Higgle book because it's a nice, easy word to remember.
Right.
And it's a 4-step negotiation process. Very simply, start off with some objectives. What are your objectives? What are the other person's objectives? Then work out what the timing is. How long is it going to take? What the stages? Then work out your negotiation variables. People think it's only price. There's at least 5 in any negotiation. What are your variables? And then think about what's your ideal and what's your least acceptable outcome. And then finally, step 4, issues and problems come up. Write them down, address them, and make sure that your counterparty knows that you've thought about it and sent it back to them. And so I did that, and I sent it to a load of people, and they've all gone, it's fantastic. Simple, easy to understand, easy to apply, and anyone can negotiate anything better using the Higgle 4-step process.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
It's been so much fun. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Pleasure. Really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it, Sharon. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Have a great day.
And you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.